Well, no, it can't be game day. That sets
Love
me up
it.
for failure. Gotta be.
I
It's got
tried to catch
day.
you
I like
there.
that. He's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
Tried to
it
catch
whoa,
you.
whoa.
can't be game day. What's up, guys? This is Jimmy Robbins with the Toronto Blue Jays org. Thank you guys for listening and watching the walk off with Scott and Adam. Go Jays.
So excited to be joined by today's guest, pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays organization, finishing his season in Double-A with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Jimmy Robbins, welcome to the walk-off, man. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
By the way, buddy, congrats on a heck of a season here. Strong showing with the Fisher Cats. You had like a 1.52 ERA in 5 starts, racking up more than a K per inning. Well done, buddy.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was nice to finish out strong and finish off a good season the right way.
You, by the way, my man, have a killer sports name. Jimmy Robbins. It just rolls off the tongue. It sounds like a player from Bull Durham when Kevin Costner's like, but you know.
Yeah, it was funny when I was at Rollins College, the announcer would always mess up and say Jimmy Rollins, and it was
Right.
every time someone tweeted anything, it was like Jimmy Rollins is playing for Rollins College.
That's all right.
When you were growing up as a kid, did your teammates call you Jimmy, or were you a last name guy? Was everyone's like Robbins, or did you actually have a nickname?
J-Rob gets used a lot.
J-Rob.
Jimbo Slice.
Nice.
And all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Jimmy was usually the last. Robbins pretty much never. Jimmy was usually if I was in trouble, but there was usually a nickname.
Jimbo Slice. I love it.
Yeah,
That's an old Kimbo reference, man. That's a deep one.
Let's start with this season, my dude, because my goodness, it must have felt like such a relief just to be on the field, continuing your development, right? Like injuries kind of handcuffed you in 2018 and took you out for the season. COVID took 2020. Tommy John surgery in 2021. Like that's a pretty bad deck to be dealt. What was it like to finally be able to be on the field and just kind of concentrate on pitching after what felt like years of rehabbing, right?
yeah, it was amazing. Like you said, in 2018, my season was cut short in college, just with some nerve stuff in my elbow. And then 19 felt great, got drafted, felt good coming into the year. 20, COVID got the year taken away, and then felt great coming into 2021. And then the first week of spring training, find out I needed Tommy John. So it was just like kind of one thing after the next there for the last few years, but just to be back in the compete mode and get to feel like I was doing what I love to do again was awesome. And like you said, like just to be feeling like a baseball player again and not a rehabber was great. And then to perform the way I did was just a cherry on top. I mean, the main priority was just to feel good, but then to play that well and move as much as I did was awesome.
You're a Florida boy, correct?
Correct.
So when you were rehabbing, were you at the Dunedin complex a lot of the time?
I was from 3 days after surgery till the day I got cleared. So I was there for a long time.
Can you fill us in a little on what the process was like for Tommy John surgery? It's funny, we get listeners asking us about this, and I know you're much better equipped to talk about this in general. Because as fans, it's funny with Tommy John. It's such a weird injury because you're just a part of the team, and then you disappear from sight for 18 months and you're back. And it's just like the amount of work and process that goes into it kind of gets lost in it. Can you, even just from the surgery consultation, kind of walk us through how it was like?
Sure. So when I went in for my consultation, we weren't sure if I was going to need just the brace, which is a much shorter recovery, or the full I don't know what the word they use. The full fix is what you kind of get that 14 to 18 month window of return. I ended up getting the full. I did my surgery with Meister out in Dallas, and it was great. Surgery went well, but yeah, my initial timeline was kind of that 14 to 16 months back to pitching in full capacity again. And thankfully, we have a great staff in Dunedin, and I was really stubborn about trying to come back sooner rather than later because I didn't want to miss a lot of time this year. And I was pitching back full go in spring training games in February. I was like less than 12 months post-op.
Wow.
I was pitching games. So I got really lucky, really blessed with how my rehab went. But a lot of the beginning phase is just mobility, which I think is where a lot of guys kind of fall behind, is that you really can't progress with throwing until you have full range of motion back. And for some guys, their body just responds differently. So I was fortunate enough.
So how long for you until you were just able to do regular stuff like grab a cup of coffee or
Oh man, I think I was in a brace. I think I was in a brace for 6 to 7 weeks. I mean, I was showering with a bag on my arm for almost 2 months just because of the incision. So, I mean, it was a while. That beginning phase was really tough. I'd like to say probably 2 months before I started to feel like, okay, I can be a normal human again. Now let's focus about being a baseball player. So yeah, those first couple months were really frustrating.
It must have been sort of nice being that your home is in Florida
Mm-hmm.
and the complex is also in Florida, so you're not like also needing to be on the road while you rehab, right?
Yeah, that was nice having that little bit of consistency with just staying at my own house instead of a team hotel. So that was nice. That made it a little bit less of a drag, but still waking up every day at 6 a.m. to go get your arm stretched out. Not a very exciting daily schedule.
Did you? Sorry, Scott. I just want to jump in here and ask a question. You talk about not really having that range of motion and that not coming back to you. Your arm in the brace and the bag in the shower. Did you find once you were back to moving your arm that it didn't quite like the connection between your brain and what your arm was doing wasn't quite there? Because I used to be a plumber and I put a bandsaw through the back of my hand, severed a tendon in my finger. And once I was finally all healed up from that, I found that actually moving my finger didn't quite go the way my brain was expecting it to. Did you have any similarities there, like with your moving of your arm after you'd recovered?
So I think what they do a really good job with early in rehab is really quickly trying to build back just like the motor skills of what your arm does on a daily basis, not even as an athlete, but just as a person. So I think by the time I was cleared to go back to doing everything, I was slowly built into that. So I didn't have as much of an issue with that. But the mental side of it, that definitely kicks in once you start trying to be a baseball player again, because you're told that you're healthy enough to do these things, but until you do it and don't have pain, your brain takes a little bit of convincing to let you actually go full bore with it and not have any restrictions. So that took a little bit longer, but just the easy everyday stuff, like you said, picking up a coffee cup or carrying groceries in the house, that came back a little bit quicker.
So just like the psychological hurdles of convincing yourself that your body can still do these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because your last memory of doing something at full go is when you hurt yourself, at least for me. So, convincing yourself that you're fine to go back out there and do it again, that takes a little bit of repetitiveness.
That would be some real mental toughness, because I would imagine it's not even psychological. It's more of a reflex. Like your brain is like trying to protect it. You put your hand on a hot stove and you pull back, right? And you're trying to convince yourself, no, this isn't hot. Leave your hand there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It'd be tough. Good for you.
So you finish your rehab and you joined the Dunedin Blue Jays and you dominated right off the top there, which I'm sure must have excited all of the coaching staff and stuff that had worked with you throughout this, because you got the call up to Vancouver in early June. How did they let you know you were being promoted?
It was actually funny. We had just finished a away series and we had an off day on Monday. And I had gone into the facility to throw, just to get my daily throwing in. And the pitching coach, Drew Hayes, was there. And I had made a comment that he asked me if I had anything else going on that day. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna go back to the house. I don't really have any plans today. Finish my throw and come inside. And he calls me to the office and he's like, remember when you said you didn't have anything else going on today? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, now you have to go pack because you're going up to Vancouver. So that was kind of cool. That was exciting. And like you said, that was a relief. And it was kind of a testament to a lot of work that it got put on, not just by me, but by all the staff. So exciting.
Was Vancouver your first taste?
I have
Canada?
a feeling in my.
It was my first time up there.
How did you like the city?
Oh, it was great. I loved it. I felt like I was in another world. Not only was it the first time I had gone to Canada, it was the first time I had gone that far west. So the mountains were new to me.
Right.
The landscape of everything was different. I mean, I was in love with it. I was like, I think several times I made a comment that it was kind of like the perfect city, because you had the big city life, you had the water if you were into the water, you had the mountains if you were into the mountains. The food was great, and I'm a foodie, so
yeah,
it was awesome. I loved it.
Was it a little bit of a culture shock? I can imagine. I mean, I've been to Florida and Vancouver. They are substantially different for two, Canada's not that different from the US, but
Yeah.
like if you're going to pick two areas of the two countries, they're pretty different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was different. It was different in the sense of just like you said, like the area itself was totally different. I'm so used to flat. I mean, Florida's a plate. So it was definitely different, but it was an easy adjustment for me because of how much I enjoyed it.
Hmm. Well, it's funny. We just had Davis Schneider on the show on Monday,
Mhm.
and he mentioned Vancouver was his favorite of all the affiliates, and it wasn't even so much the city or anything. He just said that it was the first place he really felt like a pro ball player because
Yeah.
the fans come out in droves.
Yeah.
Did you have a similar experience with that? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it was easily the biggest crowd I had played in front of. And so to have that every day, I mean, that makes it really easy to get up for your games when, every day you know that there's going to be 5,000-6,000 people there. And I was starting on the weekends there, so it was always a big crowd. So that was a blast. It was fun to pitch as well as I did in front of that many people because, like he said, it is your first little taste of what it's like to be a professional athlete for sure.
When you have taken the mound this year, I mean, obviously you're thrilled that you're healthy and you just
Mhm.
want to get back into the routine that you were used to beforehand. But what was like your main focus? Was there anything that the Blue Jays kind of had you concentrating on, whether it was delivery, secondary pitches, whatever it was? What were you
Sure. So
concentrating on?
yeah, well, so for me, you mentioned routine, and that was the primary focus for me. But I think before I got hurt, I didn't have a very good routine, and I think one thing that rehab allowed me to do more than anything else is really hone in on what a good routine was for me and what that looked like, and what was going to put me in the best position every 5-6 days to be out there and perform my best. And when I came out of rehab and I felt like I had that routine that was really solid, my focus every week was just repeating everything every single day, knowing what I had to do when I showed up to the yard that day, what was going to make me feel great come the next time I was on the mound. And
Building
so
that muscle memory again, eh?
exactly. And once I felt like I had that, it made it really easy every time I took the mound to feel like I was really confident in what I was going to do that day before I even threw the first pitch because I knew I did everything I had to do that week to get ready for that outing. And that kind of made it easy for me to start rolling and really backing up good outing after good outing because I was in such a good rhythm of what I had each and every day. And once I settled into that, I really think it allowed me to kind of take the thought process away from it and just be like a competitor on the mound.
Would you say routine and preparation is the reason for your step forward?
I would say so. Especially the further I got away from rehab, just even if you look at kind of my stats throughout the year, the further I got out of rehab, the less my walk rate went down. I was throwing my off speed pitches for a strike more, and I don't even think that was so much a mechanical thing because my mechanics didn't really change much throughout the year. I think it was just as I got further away from rehab, I started thinking less like a rehabber. Every pitch wasn't okay. I'm going to throw this pitch. Let's make sure it feels good when it comes out of my hand. It turned into like I know I'm going to feel good, so now I'm just going to come at guys. I'm going to throw everything in the zone. I'm going to compete, and you kind of get it's a shift of mindset, and that allowed me to just put up better numbers because I was just out there being an athlete instead of being a rehabber.
Is there anyone along this path that you've been on the last few years that you kind of modeled your routine and preparation after? Like, was it a staff thing that helped you fix your routine? Was it just your own kind of research? Or was there a guy who took you aside and was like, "Buddy, you're doing it all wrong"?
Sure. Well, I mean, it was kind of a combination of all those things. Honestly, I've always been one of those guys that likes to learn from what works for guys that I think are very successful. So obviously, a ton of research on my own and just some different big league names. The staff, or the rehab staff at the complex is amazing, and they helped me find what worked for me and then really set it in stone. As far as the Blue Jays are concerned, I mean, Jordan Romano came and talked to us. And I really took some time to dive into kind of what he had to say and or some different things that had worked for him when he went through the rehab process. So I picked his brain a little bit, and that was great to kind of, although he's a reliever, he still went through the same rehab process. So
Hmm.
to be able to kind of learn what worked for him and what didn't, that helped me build into my routine as well. So I kind of drew from everything.
So now that you're back feeling like a baseball player again and not a rehabber,
Mhm.
Is there a pitch that you're kind of in love with right now? What's your go-to pitch, or is there even
Man,
some secondary stuff you're starting to feel like good about?
oh man, yeah. I've honestly at the end of the year, I felt really good about all 4 pitches. That was what was cool for me this year too. Is this was a brand new repertoire for me. I had prior to getting hurt, I was pretty much fastball, curveball. The changeup wasn't very good. I didn't have a cutter, and so I knew, long game, I want to be a starting pitcher, and I wanted to have a good changeup to throw to righties. I wanted to have something hard that I can throw into righties. So that's where we came up with the cutter. Um, and it's funny you asked the favorite pitch kind of changed throughout the year. Early on, I think, in Dunedin, I was throwing just a lot of fastballs, just because it was working and I didn't feel like I needed to go to much else. In Vancouver, I really was in love with the cutter. I got some really good results on the cutter. And then towards the end of the year, once I got to Double A, the slider was really great and it got harder and sharper for me. So I was kind of in a place where I was feeling everything at one point throughout the year. And once I settled in, those last 2 outings in New Hampshire, I felt like I had everything going and just kind of mixed all 4 pitches. And those were my 2 best outings of the year. So I was really in a good place at the end of the year. So
That's the key, eh? Just hitting your spots with all your pitches. Like it makes such
yeah,
a difference to have that confidence in it. There was a
absolutely
pitch clock. There was a pitch clock for you this year, right?
correct. Yep,
Was this the first time pitching with
it
a pitch
was.
clock?
It
Did it?
was.
Did, did you feel rushed at all? I'm guessing this is one of those adapt or die type things, right? Like
Sure.
you had to get
Sure.
used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, the first couple weeks in Dunedin with it, you felt it a little bit. My first couple outings, you subconsciously you find yourself looking at it to make sure you're not too close to zero. But really, once I felt like I got in a rhythm of what it was, I almost forgot that it was there. I don't think I ever got called on it. Maybe once in Dunedin, but once you kind of internally know what the time is and know how much time you have to do what in between pitches, you can kind of, like you said, routine again. It becomes routine to just be a little bit quicker on the mound. So I started to not worry about it after a while.
It actually did speed the games up. Did that
Mhm.
affect the team in any way? Like, was it nice to play a little bit shorter games?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
even subconsciously you could feel the pace of the game being a little bit quicker. I think for some guys maybe it affected them negatively early. They felt like they were rushed, but I do think that when you're in a rhythm, it benefits you because you're just getting the ball and getting back on the mound and going right back at it. I think for hitters it's a little bit more of an adjustment because some of those guys had really long in between pitch routines. So cutting down on that might have been a change for them, but as a pitcher, I think if you're pitching well, it benefits you because it just keeps you in that rhythm. You don't have time to kind of get out of your own flow.
So, Jimmy, you're a lefty, which I'll be honest, if just me throwing left would have made my dad so happy. Like, really, when it comes to baseball, it's so funny. There's just like this intangible value put on left-handed pitching. Do
Sure.
you have a moment as a kid or whatever where you were just like realized there was an adult that was just excited about you just throwing left?
Oh yeah, and even now too. I just so many times where I'll meet somebody and they'll say, "Oh, hey, you play baseball, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What position do you play?" And you tell them you're a pitcher, and then they're like, "Lefty, righty," and you say lefty, and their face lights up. It's like they've met an alien. They get so excited. Which is funny to me because being in baseball, you kind of subconsciously know that that's a valued thing, but
Mm-hmm,
you don't
mm-hmm.
really understand why outside of the fact that it's a different look and you're a little more rare. But when you tell somebody on the outside and they get all excited about it, it kind of puts it in perspective that it's kind of cool that you have something different
Yeah.
about you. But it is pretty neat.
It's
Yeah.
probably a little funny, right? Because you're like, well, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing how I throw. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
this
I
wasn't a
just
decision.
was
Yeah.
born this way. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm the only lefty in my family too. So it was just kind of something that I got lucky. It worked out for me that way. But my mom jokes that she used to tie my right arm behind my back when I was a kid, but I don't think.
Well, we're glad she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm curious your thought on well, let's just get into it. Baseball has changed a lot in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
Celebrating hits, showing emotion. It's become a part of the game, and I think for the better, honestly. But my question to you is there a line in this? And just for example, let's take Josh Naylor. if he were to hit a home run off you and then pretend that you were a baby and he imaginarily rocks you while he's running around the bases screaming you're his son, would that upset you?
Uh, Here's my answer. Anytime anybody asks me this, I say the same thing every single time. For me, it's a give and take thing. If you're gonna hit a home run off me in the playoff game in a big spot, and you want to, you could walk around the bases on your front two hands. That's whatever you want to do. Good for you. The flip side of that, though, is if I strike you out with 2 outs and I decide that I'm gonna crab walk into the dugout because I'm excited, then you shouldn't have anything to say about it. That's my whole thing on it. Like, I'm okay with it. I think the fans love it. I think it's good for the game of baseball. I think it's exciting to watch. I personally, just sitting on the couch, get excited when guys bat flip or pound chest after a strikeout. I think all that's great, but it's got to be mutually agreed upon, and one of those unwritten rules then that, if you're going to do it to me, you can't be mad if I get excited if I strike you out. So, whatever, it is what it is. I think it's exciting, and I'm not afraid to show emotion on the mound either. So it doesn't bother me that much.
We need pitchers to have some equivalent, though, because other than like a fist pump or any, we don't really see pitchers crab walking after they get that 3rd strikeout. So
yeah, I mean, and I do think sometimes it's a little bit two-faced, because then you see pitchers that stare down a batter or something like that, and that kind of gets frowned upon. But that seems to be kind of the equivalent. I get the idea of keep it in your dugout, and that there is some meaning behind that. But I mean, like I said, if I strike somebody out and want to stare into my dugout and pump my chest and yell "let's go," then I think that should be okay. That should be just a part of the game then.
That's such a great point, because truly, when pitchers showboat a little, it definitely gets more attention drawn to it than the hitter doing a bat flip or doing whatever he's doing, right? Like, you'll see a pitcher strike a guy out, look into the dugout and fist pump, and all of a sudden, like,
benches are about to clear.
Rule has been broken.
Sure. And I think part of that comes from, the pitcher is going to be on the mound then for that next pitch. If a hitter hits a home run, he bat flips, he runs around the bases, but then he's in the dugout and you don't see him again for another 2 or 3 innings. Whereas that pitcher, if he does something like that and then the next guy steps in the box, that immediate tension is already right there. So, it sets the stage more for an incident to take place. But again, I think if everyone was just on the same page, where it's like, it's an even playing field. If you're going to do it, then we should be able to do it too. Then that eliminates that whole issue. But, it is what it is. I think it's exciting. Some people get their feelings hurt, but I mean, if you don't like it, pitch better. It's the same way. If you don't like it, hit better. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
It's funny because when you start talking unwritten rules, some of them are throw them out the window. That's old school. But some of them just it's like, no, this is a part of the game.
Sure.
So I'm curious on, I guess, self-imposed justice, if you will. Like, have you ever taken things into your own hand and intentionally hit a guy at any point in your career? You don't need to name names.
I haven't actually. Yeah? I really haven't. And I just don't think I've ever been put in a situation where that's been justified.
Yeah.
But like you said, unwritten rules. Sometimes it seems, if you're going to go out and you're going to hit a guy's best player in a situation where it seems like, you might be trying to get him out of the game to better the chance of your team winning. I mean, that's petty. I don't like when stuff gets taken to that point when it seems like they're doing it to look for a competitive advantage. That's to me where it becomes really cheap, because then it's like you don't feel confident enough in your ability to beat their best player. So instead you're just going to hit them. That's just being that you're almost just exposing that you don't think you're good enough to beat that guy. So, that whole unwritten rule stuff, obviously that stuff exists, but it should never be with the intent to hurt somebody so that your team is in a better place or, stuff like that. Because then I think that you're just taking the easy way out.
I can't agree more with you, man. Let's talk real quick here. Your transition to Double-A. That's where you finished the season. You didn't miss a beat. You joined the club and really continued your success that you'd seen most of the season. What was the biggest difference between pitching to hitters in Double-A compared to Vancouver with High A?
Definitely the approach. Hitters have a better approach. I think the differentiator is in high A, guys will sit on a certain pitch. And if you're able to work away or work around that pitch, then you can have a lot of success. Whereas in double A, I don't think guys just sit on pitch. I also think they sit on location. You can throw a great pitch, but if it's a pitch that they're sitting on and it's not where they want it to be, they're not going to swing at it. They're not going to chase as much. So I think it's just an elevated IQ and understanding of the game. But again, for me, with the place that I was at, where I felt like I had control of all four of my pitches almost every time I got on the mound, if not at least three, I felt like even when I knew that they were sitting on a certain thing, I could set up the pitches that I wanted to go to with my other pitches. So I was able to kind of work around that, and I was filling up the zone. And what I always tell myself is I'm good enough, and my stuff is good enough to where my biggest opponent on the mound is going to be myself. If I'm not hurting myself, it's going to be hard to string hits against me. It's going to be hard to put the ball over the fence against me. Like, I just have to be consistently in the zone with my stuff, and good things will happen. So that's why I think I was able to continue my success, is because I was just coming right at guys and making them show that they could beat me. Whereas some guys, I think you might see guys get a little bit worried about the fact that they're pitching at a higher level and they feel like they might need to change how they pitch and dance around the zone and stuff. I never really had any of that.
Yeah, it's funny how the minors are very much so about development.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've even heard that the Seattle Mariners system, they in high A put a rule in with their pitchers that they need to throw 50% breaking balls.
I've heard that too. Yeah.
Was there anything like that within the Blue Jays organization? And obviously, the higher up the ranks you go, the more it's about developing under the actual game of baseball, I guess, for a lack of a
Sure.
better term. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's more case to case with the Blue Jays. I think if they know that something works for somebody, they might encourage them to use it more. But for me, it was always just an emphasis on being able to mix things. And what I think too, as you get higher through the minor leagues and closer to the big leagues, um, you know, everyone puts emphasis on, the StatCast stuff and what it says on the Rapsodo and the TrackMan about what your spin is and all this. And, you have these things that tell you what a good pitch is and what a good pitch isn't. And then you get to the big leagues, and I almost think there's this transition where it's like, you know, a good pitch in the big leagues is a pitch that gets somebody out, right? I mean, no one in the stands is going to care if you have bad spin rate or if you don't move the ball enough, if it makes guys swing and miss, or if you get outs and you help a team win games. So, and the flip side of that is you could throw the nastiest pitch ever on StatCast or TrackMan, but if the guy hits it 50 rows deep in the right field, then no one's going to tell you that that was a good pitch when you get back to the duck.
That's
So,
true.
I think that was what I noticed as I got higher, is there, it becomes more of an emphasis on, okay, sure, your stuff is good. There's always ways to make it better, but which pitches of yours get people out? And let's throw more of those,
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's the trend that baseball should be following. I think a good pitch is a pitch that gets somebody out, not the pitch that looks good on an iPad. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I almost appreciate that we're not one of those orgs that hammers guys on just throwing a bunch of spin because a guy on a computer says that that's what you should do.
What do you got going on this off season, Jimmy? Like, how much off time do you give yourself before you get back to training when a season ends?
This year not much, because this is my first off season where I'm fully healthy, so I wanted to take advantage of that as much as I could. I've already been back at the PDC working out now for this is my third week of already weight training, and I'm already throwing again, super light obviously, but playing
Right.
catch already.
Yeah.
So I'm already kind of starting my build up a little bit, and I'm doing that because I want to give myself more time to work slowly rather than wait longer and then rush to get ready. Just because I want to be ready for whatever opportunities come my way in the spring, and I want to give myself the most time to get ready for that.
Jimmy, this has been so great, man. We really enjoyed chatting some ball with you and how generous you were with your time. You got a few more minutes here? I know Adam's got a few
Yeah,
questions here to
yeah,
bounce
absolutely.
off you. Go to her, Adam.
All right. First of all, you mentioned being a foodie, bit of a
Mhm.
foodie yourself. So, what was the best food you had during your time in Vancouver?
Oh, okay. So my fiance and I had this spot called Nook, which is over by Kitsilano Beach. And we went in there and they always had different specialty pizzas, and that place was legit. We were in there almost every week when we could. I'd like to go like the day before start, get a little pizza, some calories in there. But that was our spot. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, two follow-up questions then. By the way, congratulations on your engagement there.
Thank you. Appreciate
Uh,
it.
Pineapple on pizza. Yay or
No,
nay? No.
no,
Okay.
no. Can't do it.
All
I'm
right.
I'm in for most stuff on a pizza, but I can't do I can't do cold and hot on a
All
pizza. I
right.
can't do
All right. No, no,
it.
that's good. What kind of pizzas did you get then? What's your game day pizza?
I like a well, no, it can't be game day. That sets me
Love
up
it.
Okay.
for failure. Gotta be.
I
It's got
tried to catch
day.
you
I like
there.
that. He's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
Tried to
it
catch
whoa,
you.
whoa.
can't be
All
game
right.
day.
All right.
I like a spicy pizza. I'm into spices, so like a maybe a spice like a angry pepperoni, a little spicy pepperoni, maybe some peppers on there, some red chili flakes. In the meat pizzas, I like the meat pizzas.
I'm sweating just talk. I can't do spice. Anything hotter than a ripe tomato, and I'm out.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
well,
man.
yeah. My wife makes fun of me all the time. So specialty pizzas at Nook. What kind of
Mhm.
specialty pizzas do they have?
One time they did it was like a spicy sausage with ricotta, like ricotta cheese balls on it. Man,
Nice.
that was dangerous, man. That thing was, I could have gone back there every day if they kept that on the menu.
I once went to a small pizza place in Red Deer, Alberta. Papa Baldi's. Shout out to Papa Baldi's. They had a mac and cheese pizza.
Oh
I
man.
had it with my daughter. So many carbs, I swear. I couldn't move for 4 days, but it was as good as
Hey,
it
but
sounds.
while we're talking food though, and we're talking spicy food, I mean, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. My whole family's from Buffalo, New York. Buffalo wings in Buffalo, New York. You can't beat it. If there's a place to get buffalo wings and you're looking for spicy wings, it's Buffalo, New York or nothing.
Love
Awesome.
it. Notice by the hat, I was going to get to that next, so we'll touch on this
Yeah,
now. Congratulations on your Buffalo Bills being a decent football team again.
thank you. I
Uh,
put in a lot of time to get to this point. I
that's
appreciate you
good.
saying that.
That's
I've put
good.
in a
No,
lot of time.
you have a real quarterback there, so it's
We
exciting
do.
to see. So
He's the unofficial mayor of the city of Buffalo.
I bet he is. Tip of the cap to Josh Allen. All right. We know you don't have pizza on game day, but what does your game day routine look like?
As far as meals.
Just prep. You wake up in the
All
morning,
right.
you know you're going to pitch today.
Yeah, sure.
What's it look like?
So yeah, so I mean, let's say it was a 7 p.m. start time. I wake up, big breakfast. I try to get the majority of my carbs in on breakfast on game days, just because I know as I get closer to the game, I'm not going to have as much of an appetite. So, big breakfast: French toast, pancakes, eggs, bacon, something along those lines. Lunch, I like to just get with like a sub, a sandwich. Keep it light during the day though. Watch TV, watch sports shows. I like to watch like the ESPN talk shows, First Take, stuff like that. And then get to the field probably 2.5, 3 hours before first pitch. I usually start my routine about 2 hours before inside, just with my stretching and my mental preparedness stuff and my breathing stuff and all that. And then usually out on the field probably about 45 minutes before, and then I've got my routine pretty much down in the minute once I get closer to like 35 minutes pregame. So usually on the mound 15 minutes before. I want to be in the dugout 5 minutes before so I can get some water, some Gatorade, be ready for the national anthem. So I'm a little bit of a stickler once it gets closer to game time, but I try to keep it pretty light leading up to the day.
How tough is it on a pitcher, especially in a rain delay scenario? Because I'm guessing that screws with your routine big time.
It's a little bit tough. Yeah. My typical approach for it is I try to still have everything that I want to do inside done before whatever the time that the game is originally slated to start at. That way, when it is time for they tell us, let's say they give us 30 minutes to get ready when we go out on the field, I can just hop right into my outside stuff. And I'm not trying to jam everything that I do in 2 hours into 30 minutes. But yeah, it's tough because it does throw off your schedule a little bit because they don't always allow you to get the amount of time that you would normally get. So it's tough, but you adapt and overcome.
Okay, two last questions to get to here. You mentioned Jordan Romano came and gave a little pep talk to you, and I assume some of the other pitchers going through your Tommy John rehab.
Yep.
Obviously, he had Tommy John in 2015. Things have worked out nicely for the Markham Madman. You said that he gave you some insight onto some things that worked for him and what didn't. So I just want to know, what did work for Jordan Romano when he was recovering?
Yeah. So the thing that I took most from what he said is, I think as pitchers, especially, you feel like every time you have to pick up the ball, you have to have a certain amount of intensity to what you're doing. And sometimes I think that we start to ignore our bodies a little bit because we're so caught up in the work. And what he preached was just, it's okay on days where you don't necessarily feel like you've got 100% in the tank to not go out there and force it. Listen to your body. Allow yourself to have those light days when you need to have a light day. And then on days where you feel good and you feel like you can get a lot of work in, then take advantage of those days as well. But, there's no need to go out there and push your body past what it feels it's able to do. And that resonated with me because I do think that that's how I used to work. I think I just felt like I had to get the most out of every day, and I would kind of push aside what I was feeling. And that's helped me a lot with building a routine, and obviously it worked for him and it's worked so far for me. So let's hope it keeps going that way.
Very cool. All right, last question is a selfish one for myself. I need your feedback on this. So my daughter plays hockey. Last year, I broke the cowbell cheering for her. Need a new noisemaker for this season. I'm looking at cowbells. Then again, her team name is the Mighty Ducks. Should I get a duck call?
Oof. So
good idea, bad idea.
I'm in on the duck call, and here's why. I have
Okay.
PTSD from my grandmother bringing a cowbell to every one of my high school baseball games. So I would be okay with no more cowbells. All in on the duck calls, but no more cowbells.
All right. Appreciate it, Jimmy.
Love
Jimbo
it.
Slice. Thanks so much, man. This has been a great
Absolutely.
chat.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys having me.
Hey, really appreciate you taking the time, my dude. All the best with the off season and upcoming season, and hopefully we can twist your arm and have you back sometime.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers, man. We really appreciate all of you within the walk-off community. This thing continues to grow and become an animal of its own. It's a little bit overwhelming, but honestly, we love talking Blue Jays baseball and all the interaction that you folks are involved with us. Thank you so much. Discord, feel free to join it. That is always free. The show, or the link is in the show notes. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. And if you are watching on YouTube currently and you're not subscribed, we'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. All the best, everybody. Cheers.